Back pain, just like my friend has here? Well, because you're sitting too much? Possibly, maybe, maybe not. Let's look at one of the common culprits, especially if you're stuck in this seated position for hours a day, maybe even a long car ride before you make it to the gym. You get there, get ready to squat. Notice we have some extra anterior tilt because that spine's literally being pulled forward. So let's get a quick psoas and iliacus release. First, let's look at why that's important. Now, of course, your other hip flexors and your quads being tight are all going to be pulled upstream, grabbing onto this pelvis, wanting to pull it forward, as most strength athletes are quite quad dominant. One of the most missed muscles is iliacus, and then second is probably psoas off of here. So iliacus, if you're not familiar with it, it's not green, right? But we're going to use this green band here. Literally attaches at this point here, coming from the inside to this fine little point here. So you can see, if this was really tight, being pulled here, how much that would pull on your pelvis wanting to turn it forward. Now, your back hopefully does not have a metal rod up it that keeps it from bending like this guy does. So you can imagine how much more that pelvis would tilt. Skeleton doesn't do that. But let's look at what happens if it's seated all day. So notice I didn't move my hands at all. All I did is move that femur up in a fixed position. Now if we're seated with anterior tilt, can't display that very well here, that would be even shorter. So now imagine this muscle shortens over time, and you go to stand up and stretch, and your back is pulled in between, pinching those discs, making everything tight and uncomfortable. So it's friend here, psoas, attaching onto the actual spine. Iliacus is going to pull the pelvis forward. This is going to do the same thing, but attached on the spine. Once again, look, I'm not moving my hands at all. All I did is flex that femur. Imagine sitting in the desk, this guy tightens up, and then we stand up and we have all that tightness and pain. So, quick, easy release here. Grab your boomstick. I'm going to go right off of that hip crease where I showed you on the skeleton. Once I find that bony part of my hip, I'm then going to angle down and in. We're going to show two movements. We usually show three, killing two birds with one stone. I'm going to come up and out, in, and straighten that leg. Out, external rotation, up into flexion, internal rotation, straighten that leg into extension. This can be done the other way. Just think of large circles with your hip. And then, whether both feet are flat or legs straight, we're going to come into anterior and posterior pelvic tilts. Make sure you're not tensing and bracing your core here. As you can see, when we get into psoas, if I brace, that's actually going to push that out. Your body's reaction is probably not going to like it very much. It's going to try to push out to keep those tight and sore muscles protected. So just relax, take a couple breaths. For most people, starting with their feet flat on the floor is going to feel quite a bit better. This already starts to pull me anterior. Everything's tight. It's just so much more uncomfortable as if I come to a neutral position here. That can be a key indicator, though, how tight this musculature is if you have a hard time maintaining a flat back here. So again, psoas, I'm coming in between hip and belly button at approximately halfway, right off the sides of my abs at approximately a 45-degree angle. Once I get in there, it's going to be the same exact movements. You guessed it. Up, out and down. If you're doing this prior to training, probably a level 5 on a pain scale of 10. Definitely no higher than 7. It's going to be really sensitive, so sometimes they're actually pulling weight out. And then once I have those circles, both ways or whichever way I decide to go, put foot back on the floor. Anterior, posterior tilt. Even if you're experiencing pain only on one side, make sure you're addressing both sides. Again, we obviously demoed one here. Take care of both sides. You can check flexion on both sides, check that squat, see if my pelvis isn't more stacked underneath my rib cage, see if it helps. If so, there's your self-assessment. You're on to the right thing. Go fix your squat.